Hello and welcome to the next instalment of Philosophy for Breakfast. Before we begin, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the 2 more subscribers who've joined us. The first subscriber, can't lie to you, is somebody I know. The second subscriber who joined us a couple of days ago, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, I think you joined after episode 3. Thank you for joining us. That was really cool. When I saw that first subscriber that wasn't somebody I know come in. I mean, when I saw the first one come in, I was very happy because she's a legend. And then when I saw the next one come in, that was really cool to think that there's just a random stranger out there watching these videos and hopefully getting something from it, or at least was maybe getting enough from it to go, do you know what? I'm going to hit that button that begins with S and ends with subscribe. So thank you for doing that. Not going to let you down. The third subscriber as well, you joined within the last 24 hours, I think. So, welcome aboard, and let's get this show on the road. And when we hit 1 million, shout out to you. Shout out. So today we're going to skip The Statesman, because I was trying to read some bits of it earlier, and I kind of got like 80% of it, but there was about 20% of it that I wasn't getting, which just made it basically impossible to talk about with any degree of certainty. So I thought I'm just going to leave it. I wanted to skip the introduction, which we've been reading from in the last few episodes, and just going into the actual dialogue between young Socrates and his visitor and the other sort of characters. But like I say, it was just a little bit difficult to follow. I thought I'd rather wait until I can talk about it in a bit more detail with a bit more confidence. So instead, we're just gonna, and because I've left it a little bit late, so I want to keep this fairly short, we're gonna do a little bit more of The Red Lion, where we're gonna hear a little bit more about Saint Germain, who gave us this wonderful advice in the I Am Discourses, and then we're gonna look at Sonnet number 5 from Shakespeare. So let's hear a little bit more about Saint Germain. And when you listen to this, this is the person who is giving us all the lovely advice in the I Am Discourses. So this is a little bit more about them, and I just think it's so interesting to hear about this guy, this character. And I haven't really looked into much of it, like how much he was involved with in real events and things like that. He might not even be real at all. It might just be a totally fictitious creation, although I doubt it, because there's this book which talks about him as well, which is supposed to be from him channeling, him speaking through people channeling him. So, let's hear about Saint Germain. But anyone who thought the multifaceted Count Saint Germain was simply an adventurer out for material gain was thoroughly mistaken. He owned in his own right an unrivaled collection of paintings and precious stones, and Madame de Pompadour testified that he gave the king valuable Velasquezes and Murillos, and presented her with the rarest and most valuable of her gems. For he was always the patron, never the patronized. He never betrayed confidence. Yet no one was ever able to determine the origin or extent of his wealth. He had no connections with any of the great banking houses, but he appeared to have unlimited credit. Currently, Saint Germain was friendly with Louis XV, whose whole court was fascinated by his knowledge of chemistry. At Louis's request, he would remove flaws from diamonds and rubies right in front of everyone. He also achieved astonishing results in colouring precious stones with his own mixture of paint and crushed mother of pearl. The king lavished him with favours, and he virtually turned the whole court upside down, bringing a new excitement and freshness to the rigid aristocracy. People began to look for miracles everywhere and could talk of nothing but alchemy and the occult and Saint Germain's strange sayings. Kind of like Jesus, who spoke in parables. The Count had a perfect knowledge of history that went back thousands of years. He talked about events at the court of Francis I, as though he had been there himself, giving an intimate description of that king, and even imitating his voice and manner. Furthermore, he could give just as many confidential details about Babylon during the reign of Cyrus the Great. Naturally, he dumbfounded people. Some branded him as a compulsive liar and sensation-seeking charlatan, but even they had to admit that his facts were always accurate and were presented naturally rather than being introduced artificially. Saint Germain had the genius to comprehend the entire European situation at any given time. He parried his political enemies with the greatest of ease. The Count always seemed to have letters of recommendation that opened the highest doors in Europe. He had lived in Russia during the reign of Peter the Great, and he had been the honoured guest of the Shah of Persia between 1737 and 1742. It appeared he was known and respected all over the globe. And beyond all this, Saint Germain has a supernatural command of languages. He could speak German, English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, Arabic, French, Greek, Latin, and Chinese so fluently that he was accepted as a native in all of these countries. Only his French was slightly accented. He spoke it as do the Piedmontese. He was ambidextrous and could write the same text simultaneously with each hand, or a different text with each. Sometimes he wrote a sonnet and a mystic poem both at once. Saint Germain had performed public transmutations twice, and people always flocked to get his rejuvenating elixirs and medicines. Frankly, I didn't like what I heard. Undoubtedly, he had the extraordinary abilities that should belong to a real magus and initiate, but he did display them so openly, almost blatantly. Why the dazzling fortune and the 2 valets and 4 lackeys in cream and gold lace livery? Why shouldn't an adept have a wardrobe like a courtesan? Fresh jewels every week and a new name for every year. I voiced my doubts to my father, and he smiled. Saint Germain doesn't need those trappings any more than you or I. His real home is the hermitage in the Himalayas from which he came, and to which he will return when he has completed the mission assigned him by the higher forces. I myself can swear that he never eats at the rich tables to which he is invited. He eats a meagre, meatless diet and is prepared to his own recipe. Every morning he does esoteric oriental concentration and meditation exercises without fail, and he refrains from having intimate relations with women. Since he can make stones into gems and base metal into gold, it is easy enough for him to put on this character which the world accepts more readily than the yellow robe and shaven head. Those diverse abilities are nothing but the toys a doctor uses to captivate a sick child while he examines its ills, slips a dose of bitter medicine into its mouth, or cuts out a dangerous abscess. You know yourself that this sick, fermented world that has deviated so completely from the source of all spiritual health would never understand the magus in his true form. Our sophisticated monomaniac universe is drifting towards a crisis, and Saint Germain has been sent out into a quaking world already facing a grim sunset to establish first aid stations for souls. But the things he must do to attract their attention! They are so blinded and deafened by matter that he must ring all the bells and show them marvellous colours and phenomena. He has to be a king among kings, a Croesus among the rich, and a magus among philosophers. He has to understand everyone's tongue, seeing through everyone's eyes, and at the same time hear the secret voices behind the visible actions. He even has to penetrate walls. But who is he really? How long has he lived in one body? My father gave me a gentle, understanding glance. I asked Saint Germain the same questions many years ago when I was a practitioner. What was his answer? He said that the secret science was his father, and the mysteries his mother. Did that satisfy you? I was disappointed. Not then, but later I realized that it was all a true adept can ever say about himself. So there you go. A bit more about Saint Germain. Such an enigmatic figure. And the thing I like about that little passage there is it raises the questions that a lot of people would say about a mystic or an ascended being or whatever, which is, why are they dressing up so fancy and what's with all the flashiness? And what he says is that it's basically to sort of dangle in front of people the shiny object to draw them in, and then give them the real truth, which will totally blow their mind. So, I am Discourses. The invocation we're going to look at is going to be... So yeah, we were talking about the power of the I am invocation when you say I am. And then if you say, I'm tired, I'm bored, I'm whatever, and then you think, oh, sugar, shouldn't have said that, because now I'm understanding a little bit more about the power of I am, and I'm starting to think, oh man, what about all those times I was saying all that crazy stuff that I wouldn't want to be true, and now it's going to come true? Oh no. How do I stop it? How do I call back that power? Well, for an individual who has been using this energy without any thought of governing it to suddenly say, I will cease this, cut it off, as it were, without understanding the correct attitude of consciousness, would be simply suppressing a flow of energy which he has caused to flow in the wrong direction. Any student who wishes to govern this will find this simple statement the most efficient, if used understandingly, of any one particular thing that can be given. This will normally and naturally govern the flow of the life energy and bring it back into its natural channels. It is the mighty statement of Jesus, and here it is, the statement. This is how you call back that power. I am the resurrection and the life. This statement will not only purify the thought, but is the most powerful, lifting, adjusting force that can be used for the correction of this greatest of barriers to the full height of spiritual attainment. Anyone who begins to feel the inner impulse to correct this condition and will use this statement earnestly and continuously will raise this marvelous current of energy to the highest center in the brain as was originally intended. He will find his mind flooded with the most marvelous ideas, with the abundant sustaining power and ability coming into expression and use for the blessing of all mankind. I ask any student to try this and watch the results in his own mind and body. You want to try this now? Try it. Feel deeply this statement of Jesus. Ready? I am the resurrection and the life. Repeat it 3 times. Either silently or audibly. And notice the lifting of consciousness which you will experience. There may be some who will need to try this several times in order to feel the amazing uplift that others will experience at the first trial. This will show you in a small way what can be done by its continued use. There is only one means of overcoming or rising out of anything, and that is, after you know what it is you are to rise out of, to take your outer attention completely away from it, fixing it firmly upon the above statement. Any condition in the outer experience that one wishes to overcome can readily be accomplished by the use of this statement, as well as using it to change the flow of the misdirected energy. And then we'll skip to another little quote here. When once you understand that your thought, feeling, and expression of I am sets the mighty God power in you into action without any limit, then you receive that upon which the desire is fixed. The human or outer defects or discrepancies have nothing to do with the omnipresent perfection of God, for anything imperfect is the creation of the outer concept of mankind. I am putting forth, as a messenger of this truth, statements of truth which will positively produce results if unwaveringly held to and used. It's another invocation for you there. Here's another one. I am the full comprehension and illumination of this thing I want to know and understand. If one does not take the attitude that I have the ability to do this, he never in the world can accomplish the thing he wishes to do. You cannot overestimate the power in this statement. There is no limit to what you can do with it. That's the I am the resurrection and the life statement. You cannot overestimate the power in this statement. There is no limit to what you can do with it. It is the statement that Jesus used most in his most difficult trials. That's interesting, I didn't know that. Always know that when you decree a constructive thing, it is God in you propelling you to do it. It is the most foolish question imaginable to ask. Have you proved this in your own experience? Each individual has to prove it for himself, or it will mean nothing to him. Nothing ever really means anything until anyone until he uses it. Nothing ever really means anything to anyone until he uses it. That's funny because that was like the first question in my mind. Have you proved this in your own experience? But actually, when you think about it, it really doesn't make sense, does it? Because then you're sort of asking, like, if they said yes, would you believe them? Would that make any difference to you? Maybe. It depends who it is. Obviously, if they said no, or yeah, I tried it and it doesn't work, then you'd be like, oh, okay then. But it still wouldn't actually give you any more knowledge about whether or not it worked. Not nearly as much as it would as trying it. And I like that. I didn't really think about that. I am the resurrection and the life. I've heard of that before and never really understood or knew where that fitted into philosophy at all. But the way he says it there kind of makes sense. Because it's like, if you're saying I'm bored, I'm tired, keep saying those, and you're feeling that, believe it, and you want to call back that truth that you're creating, to say I am the resurrection and the life is almost like saying that thing dies, that reality I was living is dead, and I can resurrect myself. I can bring about new life just through myself. I am the resurrection and the life. Oh, but how can I change that reality of being bored and tired? I'm the resurrection and the life. So that's how you do it. Hey, my sister's come in. Hello.
Hi.
I'm nearly done. I'm not going to be much longer.
I'm going straight back out again. I just need a shit.
Nice. Those hours that was. Let's pause this. We get with ourselves. Those hours that with gentle work did frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell, will play the tyrants to the very same, and that unfair which fairly doth excel. For never resting time leads summer on to hideous winter, and confounds him there. Sap checked with frost, and lusty leaves quite gone. Beauty o'ersnowed, and barrenness everywhere. Then were not summer's distillation left, a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass, beauty's effect with beauty were bereft, nor it, nor no remembrance what it was. But flowers distilled though they with winter meet, lease but their show, their substance still lives sweet. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying during the first sonnet. A flower gets frozen in winter, and then summer, springtime, whatever comes around again, boom, pops back out again. And even if the buds sort of coil back up again, then eventually, when it comes around to spring and summer, it's going to return and blossom. And that's it. I'm going to finish there for today. Thanks so much. Philosophy for Breakfast, episode 5. I'm the Poet Prince. Thanks for watching.